Hi, I'm Laura Eubanks, and welcome to my garden. 2 years ago, I converted an unused part of the garden into a little succulent tapestry using mostly leftover plant material and leftover rocks from projects we had been working on in our design business. Well, as you can see, this little vignette is overgrown. You can't really see the rock work, all the intricate little details. A lot of the plants are overrun. Winter brought a lot of sweet alyssum, and basically it just needs completely rehauled. The goal today is to tear this garden apart and rework it so that it looks as beautiful as it did the day it was planted. As you can see, this area has run amok. The cotyledon is overgrown. We've got an aloe up underneath it. We've got aeonium kiwis, haworthii, herbicum. We've got some senecio and some kalanchoe, and I could go on and on. Point being, this is a mess. So first thing I'm going to do is pull all of these plants out, cut them to size, and then later we'll reset them into the ground, just as cuttings. When deconstructing your overgrown tapestry, you'll want to be sure to try to salvage all of your rocks. You can set them aside, you can put them in buckets, you can also use a nursery flat to sift out all of the debris. As you're removing your plants, sometimes you'll pull out little tiny pieces like this. And if you're anything like me, as a succulent fanatic, I need places to store leftover cuttings attractively in the garden. So my husband created these wonderful gutters for me up on the fence line. And when I have tiny little cuttings like this that I want to salvage, I can simply just pop them into my gutters. And they'll root into the soil that's in there and be attractive for me until such a time as I might want to take one or two to use in a new presentation. So it's just a constant taking and putting back. Good morning and welcome back to the garden. The light got away from us yesterday, so we had to kill production and start up again first thing this morning. We are going to start with leaf propagation. What do you do with all of these wonderful fat fleshy leaves? The fleshier the leaf, the easier it is to start baby plants. So what I recommend is taking a nursery flat, filling it with some loamy soil, or cactus and succulent mix will work as well too. Take the leaves off of your succulent clippings after you've beheaded them and simply set them on top of the soil, like so. You're going to keep your flat in a cool, dry location, and in a matter of days to a couple of weeks, you're going to see new little baby succulents forming, typically right at the cut of your leaf. You'll see a brand new baby. So the idea here is just simply set the leaf right on the soil, then every day bring a little water bottle out and just give them a little mist. Keep them moist, not wet, but just a little bit moist. Set that aside in the shade, and as I said, in a couple of weeks you're going to have little baby plantlets. Once the succulent gets to be about this size, you can then remove it and plant it in the garden or in a pot. Now, I've taken all of the leaves that I would like off of the sedum, so I'm going to discard the rest of this plant. And lo and behold, look at Fred Ives. Here's the mother plant that I sunk in the ground almost 2 years ago when I did this initial installation. And what she did is she pupped off for me all of these wonderful babies, which are now practically adults themselves. And look at this little miracle. She also threw off a crest. Now, cresting on succulents is a phenomenon that we don't really understand. We don't know why some plants are prone to cresting. Cresting simply means instead of a regular trunk, the plant will throw off a wide, thin crest. And then you get all kinds of little interesting plantlets growing all across the top. It's pretty cool. You handle this type of cutting in the same way that you do any other. Simply trim it up and stick it back in the ground. And we'll see that later. But this Fred Ives has got some wonderful, wonderful pups. I'm going to take, oh, here's another crest. I'm going to take those all off. Trim them up so that I can stick them in the ground again. I'm not a big fan of all the leggy trunking in succulents, which is what prompted me to try this method with cuttings in the first place. Here's another pretty leaf we can propagate. Put that in our flat. And then we're going to pull Mom out. Look at that. And when you're making your cut, it doesn't really matter where. The idea is that if you can get your succulent to stand up, you've done your job. So I'm going to take just enough trunk to anchor my plant back in the ground. And this is so much more attractive of a presentation than this great big long old trunk, which I am going to now just discard. Now here we have Crassula argentea. This is also called sunset jade, and if this plant is planted in the shade or if temperatures remain cool over an extended period of time, it will stay pretty green. However, once the weather heats up and the sun starts to hit it for prolonged periods during the day, it turns a bright yellow with red tips. It's a beautiful plant. So this is another one that I'm going to pull out completely. It's getting a little too tall anyway. And then I'm simply going to take pieces. Now, with the stress that I've inflicted on this plant, this will also enhance the yellow coloring. So we're going to be resinking this in the garden later as well. Well, I've now exposed the bones of the garden. You can see that we've got some plants still in the ground. I like these plants. I like the way they're presenting. I don't need to pull these out. So when you do your succulent tapestry redesign, if you can identify plants that look good, no need to reinvent the wheel. Just leave them. So what we're going to do now is add some soil here. I have identified that this area is a little flat. Remember, flat does not work in nature. Hills and valleys, we want to see movement, creates a lot of visual interest. So I'm not one to use just cactus and succulent soil. I use whatever I have around, remembering that succulents love benign neglect and they work beautifully in horrible soil. The key being that water drains through it. That is the key. If water's draining, you're good. So any soil will do, as long as we've got drainage. Now, this cotyledon is awesome, one of my favorite plants, but as you can see, it's gotten a little too big. So I pulled the whole mess out of the ground, roots and all, and what I'm going to do is simply cut off pieces of this plant. And we're going to reset the pieces into the garden. I've taken cuttings from it in past months, so we've got a few stalks that have no growth, no pretty growth. All right, now I'm just going to dispose of this part. I'm gonna take my piece, limb it up a little bit. All right, here comes the magic. Now, remember what I always say, that if your succulent stands up, you've done your job. So we are simply just going to pop this cutting into the ground, and it's going to root and start a brand new plant. It's just like putting candles on a birthday cake. Just I'm limbing up simply so that I have something to stick in the ground. Now we're going to have this really cute new little plant. I'll probably even have some pieces left over that I can start in another part of the garden. So just you know, make it your own, people. You can use all of your cuttings, you can use some of your cuttings, whatever floats your boat. That's a good looking piece. All right. And voila, brand new plant. Here we have our completed succulent tapestry redesign. One of my strategies when doing a succulent garden is to create ribbons, not only with the plants, but also with rock. It pulls everything together, it makes everything look cohesive and interesting. And we have here 20 probably different types of succulents, but by grouping them together strategically and having the plants connect all the way through the design brings a sense of cohesion and beauty and unity to the overall garden. So I took my large foundation plants. You'll see we have strategically larger plants, placed through the garden. We have our large foundation rock. Then I bring in the plants, the cuttings that I'll use to connect those large foundation plants together. Then I bring in the rubble, the larger pebble, and I run that all the way through the design. Then I backfill with the smaller rock. And if I've said it once, I've said it 10,000 times, rock makes the design. I love rock, and the more rock that you have, the better. I've used 5 different types of rock in this succulent design. Be creative with the rock. Remember, it can be picked up and moved off and put back if you put it down and you don't like the way it looks, or just add more on top of it. Thank you so much for visiting me today. Now go, have a wonderful day in the garden.